A lot of people have been asking me to talk about the guy in New Hampshire who just died. This super tragic story that just happened of this like 37-year-old guy, literally one of the most experienced hikers ever, just died. Left a 2-year-old without a father. I'm assuming a mother to now have to parent this child and grieve, and like this family will never get over this. Never. And I feel like this may be I have so many conflicting feelings right now. So I'm going to try to be as nuanced as possible. But this one, I've been talking about this a lot, and people keep sending me this story because they know that I have been talking about how reckless and dangerous and overconfident men are in general, but especially men in the outdoors, and how they're masochistic and they're ego-driven, and their recklessness and selfishness and self-hatred or refusal to look at their stuff gets them killed. So, which is tragic. Like, I'm not just like, oh, screw these men. I'm pissed for them. I'm pissed for them because my cousin hiked the Appalachian Trail and did all the stuff that this dude did. And he, trigger warning, threw himself off of a bridge. I have lots of friends, as someone who literally did a lot of outdoor stuff for a long time, and I'm not poo-pooing the outdoors. I love the outdoors. It is very healing and all that stuff. But what I get so frustrated with is I don't even know this man's story. He may be like the healthiest person ever. He may have just suffered from masculinity and how it teaches men to push yourself and push yourself and push yourself no matter what, and beat your own record, and you can do it, and never admit when you're in over your head, and never, say no, keep going, keep achieving, and all this stuff. For what? I'm mad for that man. And I hope this doesn't come across as disrespectful. I know this family is mourning, and as somebody who has lost men in my life in the outdoors because of the nature of the industry itself and the way it worships men who do this stuff. Even the articles written, at least he died doing what he loved. Shut up! Stop! I hate that so much. He died doing what he loved. You know what he should have loved more than hiking and pushing himself and, all that stuff is being with his kid, I'm not saying that he of course he didn't know he was going to die, but he believed in himself more than he should have. And they even are framing it in these articles that some crazy storm just came out of nowhere. No, that storm, he knew that storm was there. He knew the conditions. Go Google. The whole country knew of this huge weather system. People are dead all over the country because of this weather system. And as somebody who lived in New Hampshire, literally guided outdoor 23-day backpacking trips for Outward Bound on the Appalachian Trail in the White Mountains, I've probably been to the place that man died and have friends in that community. And I know what it's like to be that person who just says, I just got to do it, who pushes himself so much. And it's not healthy, but our culture worships men who do that. And I wanted to be a dude so bad. In terms of I wanted to prove that I could do what men could do and that I could do it better than they could do. Because, part of it is a lot of childhood trauma and men literally making my life so awful and scaring the crap out of me that I wanted to prove I was tough to myself, if nobody else. And that's a whole nother video, okay? But I was never as reckless as most of the men that I knew. But you know what? I didn't have kids either. Men will have kids and continue to do this stuff because they just gotta do it. And I am the person on the phone on the other end with the women who love those men. And I love those men, right? As friends. But I'm the one who spends hours and hours and hours and hours on the phone listening to them being so scared that the man they love and share a family with is gonna die. I hear it. So I am so conflicted. I'm so mad at this man. And yet I'm so sad for him too. Because as someone who bought into this crap, I pushed myself so much and was reckless. I'm lucky I'm alive. And the outdoor world, the way we worship these men who conquer mountains. And it's like capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy culture and all that stuff. It is so extreme in the outdoors. Oh, but we're leftist. We're progressive. We're not like the. We are. It's just as bad in that industry. It's just as bad in that industry. And I believe most of the men I know who are the most reckless have traumatizing childhoods, and they haven't really dealt with it. So they keep climbing and marathoning and fill in the blanking, which is better, I guess, than drinking yourself to death. But as soon as these men get injured, they end up drinking or falling into a depression and hating their life. Or if they get injured, guess who takes care of them? It's always a woman. Almost always a woman. Their friends, their guy friends especially, their dads, their brothers, they're not taking care of them. It's always a woman. It's their moms or their sisters or usually their wives and girlfriends who nurse these men back to health because of their reckless decisions. I'm sorry. I feel I'm so upset by this because I have a very good friend in that area who is literally, this could have been her husband. It could have literally been her husband. And I've listened to her like sleepless nights worrying about the next thing, the next personal challenge. I worry about her all the time because of what could happen to him. I hate that we worry about him more than he worries about himself. I hate that I worry about most of my guy friends in the outdoor industry more than they worry about themselves. I hate that they don't even think for a second of who is going to pay the price for their mistake or their slip or not clipping right, And then on top of that, I am pissed for the community. Luckily, got him out by helicopter. But that's only because the clouds let up or whatever. But look at this. They were going to have 15 conservation officers and more than 30 volunteers who are on their way to him. I have carried a body out of the woods before, and that was not easy. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And there were 14 of us. And luckily that body was alive and ended up being fine. And this was like, there was waist-high snow. It was like a blizzard. There was wind. What was he doing there? And again, the people are like, you can't blame the victim. Yeah, he's a victim. But we can still be pissed. I honestly, again, it's like the kind of grief that family's going to go through of being so angry at him for putting himself in that situation and how selfish it was. And yet you can't be angry at them because it sounds like he was loved by his community, seems like a good guy or whatever. I don't know. We don't know anything about this guy, right? From what I've read, people are just like, yeah, he was really doing all this stuff for the community, big brother figure for a lot of people. But something in this man, whether it was unhealed trauma for his past, performing masculinity and worshiping like the what being a man means, right? Avoidance of something, or just inflated ego one day. Now he's dead. And there's a traumatized family. There's a traumatized parents, traumatized community. The people who are trying to rescue him went through waist-deep snow and faced heavy winds, blowing snow. I don't know if you know what it's like in New Hampshire in the winter, but it's cold. So they had people out since 4 a.m. looking for this man in the worst weather conditions. Look at this. They had to start turning back because they were getting frostbite. But his own mom said he was trying to beat his personal best, I think. He's trying to work on doing it in a certain time. I know men doing that currently. Anything to beat their own time. It's like they're at war with themselves. He'd already been in a bad motorcycle accident 10 years ago that broke his neck, his ribs, and almost ruined his life. It changed his whole life. Then he started hiking. Great. Then he did all the Triple Crown, which if you don't know what that is, it's a big deal. As his mom says, you have to make a choice to continue or turn back. And he was never really a turning back kind of kid. Family will never recover from this. So, for those of you who don't know, the Appalachian Trail, not only did I work on the Appalachian Trail guiding backpacking trips with Outward Bound, I wrote this piece for the Daily Beast. It's one of my proudest pieces I've ever written about all the men on the Appalachian Trail, all these good guys who literally stalk women and make their lives so hard. And that's another video. I know a lot about the Appalachian Trail. And it takes a certain kind of person to do the Appalachian Trail. It takes someone brave, someone committed, someone with stamina. So, I mean, it's a highly respected thing to do to hike the Appalachian Trail. So he had not only done the Appalachian Trail, he had done the Continental Divide Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian, it's called the Triple Crown. And like, it's a huge achievement to have that. So he went from riding motorcycles, and he's also grew up skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, hiking. Like, this guy was a very adventurous guy, loves sports, almost died in a motorcycle accident. And, that changed his whole life. So after he recovered from that, he got into hiking, which is, in theory, safer. But here's the thing. Whether it's men who are prone to addiction or men with unresolved trauma, and those are oftentimes overlapping, of course. And I don't just mean men, I mean people. This is across gender. But it's really bad in men. As somebody who worked in that world for a long time, there are people who love climbing and who are committed to climbing, and then there's the ones who are just like next level, and they take everything to the extreme, right? And it becomes their whole personality, and they're obsessed with it. And like I've talked about a lot before, a lot of men will use these kinds of sports instead of, therapy. And I don't just mean any therapy, I mean doing really deep work, really working on your relationship with yourself, your past, your childhood especially, and all that stuff. And that takes a long time, and it's a lot of work. And so many men slip into escapism. And sometimes it is, substances, booze, whatever, gaming, or outdoor sports, or like something, right? Or even corn. But this escapism to avoid themselves. And, I understand that it's because a lot of them are really hurting and they don't know what to do. And that's the easiest route. As crazy as it is, somehow I believe it's actually easier to climb Everest than to actually heal your trauma. But a lot of these men just laugh at people like us. And then they get, movies made about them, and we worship them. And then when they die and leave children with no father behind, then we're like, but they died doing what they love. Yeah, at what price? Who pays the price? They lose their life, but the people who loved them, who supported them, who risked, who took care of the kids for endless amounts of hours while these men did their hobby that they're obsessed with, that they literally put above the family every single day already. And then when they die doing that, do you know how hard that family is gonna have to, you know what I mean? Because especially if they die, you can't be mad. You can't be mad. They did what they loved, right? But it makes me so angry because we need to stop worshiping men who do this. Not just for all of us, but for them. It's not helpful to them. It's not good for them. There is something they're running from. And if they don't have a family, kids, a partner, you know what? You do you, boo. You do you. But once you attach yourself to a wife who is now like linked to you forever and who will be your caretaker, even though men are statistically 6 times more likely to leave us if something happens to us. But when they fall while climbing or something happens to them, their wife's going to take care of them forever, and their kids too. And, or they're going to fall into addiction. Do you know how many women I know who are terrified of their husbands because they're afraid they will become insufferable addicts? They know that they will not be able to live without that sport. And one of my climber friends, back when I was living in the Gunks, he got injured, dove hard into alcohol. He'd always had a problem with alcohol, but climbing is what he did to not drink. And as soon as he got injured, insufferable, nightmare of a man, so selfish, so self-pitying, and lost all his friends. I'm not even sure if he's still alive because he just completely disappeared and just literally was drowning in self-pity and the bottle. God, he wasn't dating someone when that happened. I tell you, as somebody, I love the outdoors still. I love it, but I'm not as reckless in the outdoors like I was before. It is a direct result of facing my trauma. I'm not saying this is across the board for everybody, but me personally, the desire to just go out and just willy-nilly do whatever and not care what happens to me came from a lack of self-love, lack of even caring. Definitely a lack of thoughtfulness of all the people who cared about me and who would have been impacted by an injury or anything like that. And unlike men, I didn't date anybody. Right? So I just figured, well, my family, whatever. But I certainly didn't have kids and a whole family tied to my unpredictable, reckless, masochistic tendencies, escapist, fear of sitting alone with myself tendencies. When men refuse to work on themselves, they never suffer alone. Some woman almost always is going to swoop in, because that's what we're trained to do, and that's what we got to work on, because it's not our job to save men. We'll swoop in and lose all her financial security, all of her career prospects, all of years of her life nursing men back to health because they just decided to go climbing one day, soloing, just for fun, and then fell. So like I say all the time, you can't save these men. They're not going to change because of us. They have to change. That willingness to change has to come from within. Bell Hooks, God bless Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks talks about it. This has been a conversation for a while. We can't change men. And I want women to stop trying to change men. And I want us to heal our own stuff so that we don't feel like we have to change them. And that we're also more cautious about who we link our life to. Because, when it's family, like my cousin, well, it's family. Somebody who is holding the hands of lots of women who just pray, and they're not even religious, just live in a constant state of fear of what's going to happen to their husband and how it's going to affect them and the kids. I just want women to be more aware of this because, look, I'm a climber. Oh, I love the outdoors. I'm a healthy man. Not always. Some of the men in the outdoor industry are the most unhealthy spiritually or mentally or emotionally that I've ever come across. Because they're physically healthy and, happy or whatever, women will marry them and then realize that they will never be as important as climbing to that man. Never as important, and your children won't be either. And he will definitely not be thinking of you when he's at the top of a mountain and a storm moves in, but he needs to break his record. He needs to beat his own personal record. They're not going to think about you because climbing is their addiction. Climbing is more important. Escapism, that war within themselves will always come first. And that's really what it is. And instead of us celebrating like, look, oh my God, look, he's died doing what he loved. No. It sounds like he was at war with himself a little bit. I don't know. And I'm not even talking about that guy anymore. I'm talking about in general. Men who cannot find peace within them will be the destroyer of the women's lives that they hook up with. And I can be sad for these men from afar. I can love them from afar, but I will not let any more of them ruin my life. Again, as somebody who really thought like a lot of them and even lived like a lot of them and was not nearly as reckless as them, but really kind of operated from a place of being at war with myself. Instead of diving into relationships to work out all my trauma, I just did the lone wolf adventure masochistic route. Someone in that state is not going to be a healthy partner. And women will do unending emotional, physical, domestic, logistical, and all kinds of labor cleaning up the wreckage of these men's momentary lapses of judgment or poor decisions. And yet men claim to be leaders. You will never convince me that men are great leaders. I've met a few. Most of them have way too much trauma, way too much hubris, don't think enough about everyone in their lives and their impact on everyone in their lives enough to make good leaders. And it's certainly not leaders of their family. Do not date men who are at war with themselves and who have something to prove. Be pulled into that war because of patriarchy, you will lose the most.